And as usual, I'm very, very excited to know you're already sitting and waiting for us to be together on the Signature Show. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilu. Today we are talking taxation. Recently, the president appointed a new helmsman at the Federal Inland Revenue Service. How does the money that is made from taxation in Nigeria, how does it translate to the well-being of the ordinary Nigerian citizen? And why is it that many Nigerians are not excited about paying taxes? We'll be speaking to Dr. Kennedy Iwundu of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. We'll also be talking about the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. What is Africa expecting? Is Africa going to be treated with more respect? Is Africa going to be more relevant? We have two experts, one in New York and another in Tanzania. We have Chief Seleman Kitenge, who is the Communication and Advocacy Officer at the AU Development Agency, NEPAD. And we also have, from New York, the Executive Director of Center for Media and Peace Studies Initiatives, Dr. Uchenna Ekwo. Don't go away. First of all, let's go to the streets where my colleague Nasiru is bringing us the views of Nigerians on the street. Don't go away.
Nigeria to reduce its reliance on borrowing and ensure financial sustainability. The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service says he is targeting a tax to GDP of 18% in the next 3 years. We are on the streets of Abuja to get the opinion of ordinary Nigerians.
I would like to look at bigger countries of the world like US, China. When they make GDP predictions, sometimes they talk about 3%, they talk about 5%. In extreme cases, they talk about 7%, maybe well-developed economies. So comparing Nigeria, looking at recent statistics, as it is presently, energy cost, devaluation of currency, a whole lot of things. Even wooing foreign direct investors will be very, very difficult for him. So it's a great tax.
Considering tax, I think the government, aside the fact they want to also increase GDP, they should also consider a way of improving the standard of living of the people, because I know when the people's standard of living have been increased, so it's become easier for people to pay tax. So people will not want to evade tax because they are struggling to survive, but there will be this will to always want to pay your tax, because you know when you pay your tax, you are still getting back the benefit of paying tax. So I think if the government will do their parts judiciously, the taxpayer will also do their parts judiciously, and I believe the 18% can be achieved.
The 18% GDP is achievable in the sense that all the government needs to do is to widen, the source of revenue. You understand? Create more job opportunities. You understand? For example, the youth, due to engagement of youth in active economic activities, will really expand, the economy and also grow the GDP.
It is possible if there's synergy, if all the hands will be on deck to make things work. One person may have a policy, another person, people that need to fulfill the policy need to be on ground. So when there is will, there is a way. So I believe that it's achievable if all Nigerians will join hands to make it work.
It cannot be possible. A lot of industries in Canada produce textiles. These textile industries, a lot of them were closed down due to lack of sufficient electricity, and due to we don't have company. We are not industrialized. Up to now, some of the things we are importing it, our raw materials, we are not transforming them into a finished goods. As you can see, we are just importing. Until when and unless we are industrialized, we are into mechanic agriculture. We can be able to produce things.
That's very possible. Nigeria is blessed with a lot of things, I mean, Nigeria is gifted. It's a gifted country. we have entrepreneurs, we have young people who are willing to, learn, work. There are a lot, the unemployment rate is massive, so anything that will bring in investors definitely would boost the economy of the country.
There was mixed reactions among Nigerians on the projection made by the FIRS chairman Zach Adideji of targeting 18% tax to GDP in the next 3 years. Nigeria is ranked as one of the lowest tax earners globally, with a tax to GDP of 10.8%. In Abuja, Nasir Usman reporting for Signature Show.
You're still watching the Signature Show, and now I'm being joined by Kennedy Iwundu, Chairman, Abuja and District Society of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Glad to have you on our show.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
The part of what is trending right now is the appointments that the president is making. I mean, we had the ministers, now we're having sectoral appointments. Recently, we had a new CBN governor, and we also had a new helmsman at the FIRS.
Exactly.
And that's our concern today. You know, taxation is what a lot of Nigerians are not comfortable with. And all over the world, people are not comfortable with taxation. We'll come to that. But how would you see this new appointment at the FIRS? What would you suggest that the new helmsman should be prioritizing at this time in terms of taxation and what that organization can do to the economy?
Okay, thank you very much. In the first place, appointment of this nature is exclusive power of the federal government, rested on the president of Nigeria. The president of Nigeria, according to the Nigeria Constitution, has so much enormous powers that is at his whims and caprices should appoint whoever is going to be the CBN chairman or CBN governor, the FIRS chairman, and all that. I'm sure these appointments are in line with our regulations. Like the man that has been appointed as the new chairman of FIRS or the acting chairman of FIRS is a member, he's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He's also a member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. So in terms of professional qualification, he's qualified to be there. I don't know much about his practical experience when it comes to tax management in the country. But in terms of professional qualification, he's there. So we expected that the president would do this appointment because he cannot run his administration without the people he trusts, without the people he feels that they are competent to hold positions for him. As you can know, the president is saying that we don't have a good tax system in the country. He set up a committee to reform the Nigerian tax system. He's also accusing that CBN is not living up to expectation. He needed people that will bring the desired reforms, especially in stabilizing the naira and also in our monetary policy. I'm sure that's the reason why he's doing this appointment. He's not comfortable with those that are there before. He believed that he needs to change the leadership of these institutions so as to work in line with his aspirations and his promises he had made for Nigerians. And that is it. And it's expected that positions of this nature will witness new appointments.
So what are you suggesting the new taxman should do? How should he move at this time? Let me, the man that was there before, as part of his exit, said by June he had brought in 8 trillion
Yep.
and was targeting to bring in 13 trillion by the end of the year. What should the new man be doing?
Yeah, I want to say, before I go into what the new man should be doing, I want to say that taxation stands on a tripod: tax policy, tax laws, and tax administration. The tax policy drives the tax laws, and the tax laws drives the tax administration. These are the tripods of taxation globally. Let me give you an example. If our tax policy say that we should concentrate more on indirect taxes, that is withholding tax VAT, you see that, and reduce concentration on direct taxes, you see us making laws of increasing the VAT rate from 5% to 7.5%. You see us making laws exempting small companies from paying company income tax. You can see how the tax policy is driving in tax laws. And in line with that tax laws, it's that rest for the Federal Revenue Service to implement the laws, that tax administration. Because tax administration is to be done in line with the provisions of the law. You're not supposed to be FIRS chairman and start doing your own laws. Taxation are product of laws driven by tax policy. So if you understand that, you can now understand what he's there to do. So when he gets there, he's going to look at Nigerian tax policy, look at Nigerian tax laws, and ensure that his administration is tailored towards it. For example, the Nigerian tax laws in the recent amendment that said the FIRS has all the powers to deploy ICT, to deploy technology in tax administration. So he is going to look at it. Has this organization deployed the desired ICT, digital technology solutions in tax administration? He will look at what is on ground. Like his predecessor deployed what we call Tax Promax. Tax Promax has been helping us in filing tax returns, helping us in generating our tax clearance certificates and all that. But is it enough? Is it efficient? That's what he's going to look at. Is there a need to improve it the more? And that way also is in tax collection. Has he deployed ICT in tax collection? How can ICT help us in tax collection? How can digital solutions help us in tax collection? I'll give you an example. If you get to the United States today, if you're checking into a hotel, as you are paying for your hotel room, the VAT is deducted instantly to the revenue authority. The solution deployed by every hotel, every eatery, every supermarket will not allow you to collect government money and keep waiting for anytime you like, you remit, or waiting for them to come and do you VAT verification to know how much you've collected and how much you have remitted. It is instantly. It is spontaneously. As you are paying, the digital solution is taking government money to the government coffers. So I'm sure he's going to look at, is the digital solution deployed by FIRS enough in his tax administration? What do I do to improve on what my predecessor has put in place in order to meet up the target of generating revenue for the government and also save government from borrowing? Remember that the last administration, headed by Buhari, said that the reason why he decided to borrow money is because he don't want to tax Nigerians more. That was his defense. He said he doesn't want to tax Nigerians more, that's why he has to borrow money. But we have departed from that now. The new person say, I'm not going to borrow money again. Rather, I'm going to generate money from taxes to run my administration. So now, if you have been appointed as the chairman of FIRS, you should put a thinking cap. How do I generate money? You are talking about 13 trillion. FIRS can generate 20 trillion. If the right things are put in place, they can generate 30 trillion. Nigeria has the lowest tax to GDP ratio in Africa, not even in the world. The average tax to GDP ratio in Africa is 16%. But Nigeria has 10%. Meaning that Nigeria has not discovered this potential in tax generation and tax revenue. So this is exactly what we expect the new herdsmen in FIRS to do, to review the existing policies of FIRS, to look at our tax laws, tax policies, and also see how to improve on the data. Right now, Nigeria don't have tax data. If you ask the State Internal Revenue Service of 36 states, say, how many people pay tax in the state? They don't know. How many people are supposed to pay tax? They say they don't know. If you ask FIRS, how many companies do we have today that are supposed to pay tax and not paying tax? They don't know. Because a country gets it right when you have the tax data. When you have the tax data, you have what you call non-filers, stop filers, and the filers. The non-filers are those who are not filing returns. The data is there. The computer will show you. If there are 1 million companies, you see it there. The stop filers are those who have been filing, and they stopped. And the filers are those who have been consistent in filing their returns. Because filing of returns is very, very crucial and pertinent to the Revenue Authority. So I expect that the man that is there now will look at what is on ground and see how we can improve on it. And at the same time, wait for the committee set up by the president to come up with the tax reforms. Because when the committee must have come out with the tax report, it's also going to guide him on tax administration.
Okay, from what you're saying, even with the laws we have, even with the policy we have, we are not exploiting all the avenues. And that leads me to something that has bothered a lot of Nigerians. Property tax across the country. Is it not part of our tax policies?
Yeah, property tax is part of our tax policy, but Nigeria don't have a clear case of property tax law. What we have in Nigeria is tenement rate.
What's the difference?
It's almost the same. A tenement rate is collected by the local government. In some countries, we call it the municipals. And they collect this rate for the development and service for the local government area. It is tenement rate, that's property tax, is very strong in UK, in Canada, and in the United States. Also, it's being practiced in South Africa. Now, Nigeria, the government don't want to come up with the property tax law. The federal government don't want to come up with the property tax law because it's similar to tenement rate, which the local government has been given responsibility in our constitution. The constitution has given the local government responsibility to collect tenement rate. The question is that how are they collecting this rate? Are they serious in collecting the tenement rate? Because if you come to Nigeria now, for example in Abuja, the local government is not doing anything. The roads are bad. Go to Kubwa, where I'm staying, the roads are bad. Go to Lube, the roads are bad. Are they really collecting this tenement rate? And if they are collecting it, what are they doing with the money? So there's a need to reform to find out what is going on in the area of tenement rate. But when it comes to the other aspect of property tax, which is being managed by federal government, we now bring the capital gain tax. The capital gain tax is a tax you pay on a gain you have made by disposing a property. In Abuja alone, hundreds and thousands of properties are being purchased and sold on daily basis. Are we collecting the capital gain tax? That's a question. And let me just explain it on how it works. If you buy a property 50 million and you decide to sell it tomorrow at 80 million, that means you have made a gain of what? 30 million. The law says you should pay government 10% of the gain you have made. That means from the 30 million, by the time you pay 10%, you are paying government 3 million naira on the gain you have made on that property. So the question is that on these thousands of properties being bought and sold in Abuja, in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, is the government collecting capital gain tax? The answer is practically no. And why is it practically no? Because there's no proper implementation. It's not about having laws and policies. Are you going to put the proper implementation to ensure that this thing works? I normally tell people that if you make a law or policy and you don't implement it, that's good. You don't have any law. If we have a system in place where you have to buy a property in Maitama 1 billion naira, and at the point of exchanging the papers of that property, the CFO, the documents, a government will say, you that is selling this property at 1 billion, can we fee your capital gain tax on this property? How much did you buy this property before selling it 1 billion? And probably you say, I bought it 500 million. You say, now you are selling it 1 billion. You're making a gain of 500 million. 10% of 500 million is 50 million. Go to the government coffers, pay 50 million to the government and bring the receipt before we process your document. The question is that, do we have the political way to do that? Are we ready to do that? Go to FCDA. Properties are being bought and sold. Papers are being exchanged every day. Documents. Is there any property capital gain tax that are collected? It's absolutely no. So until we begin to do the right thing, Nigeria will not discover its potential when it comes to tax revenue.
Okay, let's not just talk about tax. I mean, it's known that all over the world, a lot of people don't like to pay tax. But when you come to a country like Nigeria, ours is also peculiar because a lot of Nigerians complain that they don't see the effect of the tax they pay. Even the little that is being collected by the government. The roads are not good. The hospitals are not working. Electricity is not constant. I mean, just not too long ago, we had the collapse of the national grid. A lot of infrastructure is not available for the people. Where is the morality for government to continue to tax the people?
Yeah,
Is there no coming together of getting these taxes and putting it to good use for the common good?
Yeah, I want to say that tax is a compulsory levy imposed by the government. The word is compulsory. There is no place in the dictionary or in the constitution that says that if government is not providing goods and services, don't pay tax. There's no place like that. They say tax is a compulsory levy. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Constitution of many countries made it very clear. It's very implicit and explicit. They made it very clear that tax is compulsory. The Constitution said as a good citizen, as a patriotic citizen, you should declare your taxes honestly and pay to the government. It's in the Constitution. Then on the other part, the Constitution says government is responsible for the welfare and security of the citizen. So you can see it's a social contract. The citizen has to pay tax. Then government will use the money for the tax for security and what? Welfare. So if as a citizen we don't pay our tax, which money will government have to provide security and welfare?
Now, for instance, the chairman of FIRS says, I've collected 8 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what is government supposed to do with it? I mean, when you were doing your analysis, you said Nigeria is tax to GDP is about the lowest. Fine. If you're using a country like Finland, Sweden, or any of those countries in Europe, whose tax to GDP may be higher, they have medicals. They have social security. They have even security of lives and property. If somebody steals from you, if somebody robs you, the government would arrest them. In Nigeria, if somebody gets killed, nobody is arrested. So it's easy for us to talk about the other countries and then compare them with Nigeria. Does government have moral justification to be taxing the people and even saying that, oh, we are not collecting enough, if in turn this money is not used for the good of the people?
Okay, I want to say something to educate us more. The Federal Revenue Service said they have collected 8 trillion.
As at June.
Yes, at June. And they are planning to get 13 trillion towards the end of the year. Now, that 8 trillion or 13 trillion is not being shared by federal government alone. That money is shared among the 776 local governments we have in the country, the 36 states of the Federation, including FCT, the federal government. So you can see how many parties are involved. You have 776 local governments sharing from that 8 trillion. You have 36 state governors sharing from the 8 trillion. You have the FCT sharing. Then the federal government also will take their own for their federal government projects. So let us not look at this as the one person that has 8 trillion to share. The money is shared in line with our structure of the federation. Now, the question we should ask is that we should start asking a question from our local government. What is our local government doing with the money collected? What is the state governor doing with his own share? People don't question the local government. People don't question the state. And the bulk of people in this country are living in local government and states, not even the federal government. The bulk of Nigerians are living in local governments and the states. Okay, how many people are in Abuja? If Nigeria is about 200 million population, how many people are in Abuja? Because if you're in Abuja, that's where you feel the federal government presence more than the state. So what we need to do is our people need to wake up and begin to ask for accountability, especially at the state and local government level. Ask your governor, what are you doing for us? Not during the election, they will go and share rice, share Maggi, and people will clap for the governor. It continues. We also need a reform in the local government. Local government need to have their own election conducted by INEC, not the governor. Because the governors conduct this local government election and put their boys there and dash them money to run the local government and take the local government funds. We know what is going on in the country. The money, that 8 trillion is supposed to go down to the local government for the people at the grassroots to feel the pulse of it. People at the grassroots are suffering erosion. Nobody is coming to their aid. Some of them don't have market. Nobody is coming to their aid. So many local governments, so many villages don't have good basic medical care. No basic medical care. No hospital is operating there. Nobody cares about them. So we have to have that orientation. And let me tell you the truth. A country cannot grow beyond the mentality of the people. People have seen government as, let me go and eat, chop and go. And our people have seen it the same way. Local government chairmen, traditional rulers, all over, they go to the state governor. What do? They demand for their personal aggrandizement. Nobody asks for the benefits of the community. So until we have that mind that let us do something for the benefit of the community, it will be very difficult. And on the other part, have people seen paying tax as something that will bring development? The answer is no. Recently, a group of people from the United States, from UK, raised billions of naira to build a church in Nigeria. And I'm sure these people don't have good roads to their villages. What stopped them from contributing that money to build a road to their villages? Bringing hospitals to their villages. If you feel that government, if you pay it as tax to the government will misuse it. We want people to see that countries that pay tax move further than countries that don't pay tax. Go and check it. Countries that pay tax has more development than countries that don't pay tax. Countries that pay tithes, there are two ways. People prefer paying tithes to the church. In Africa, based on our religious practices, they don't want to pay tax. They prefer paying tithes to the pastor. But in the Western world, they prefer paying tax to the government. Countries that pay taxes have more development than countries that pay tithes to the church. We have to change that orientation. I feel what we should do is to pay our tax and ask government for accountability. Not only federal government we should focus, we should look at the local government, we should look at the state before we come to the federal government.
Okay, in looking at the law, is there a way the National Assembly can help to make laws that would make government more responsible and make citizens also more responsible or more responsive to paying taxes? Do they have a role to play in this whole equation?
Yeah, the laws are there. It's just about implementation. But what I want to say is this. In order to make sure that the local government are accountable to the people, we need the National Assembly need to put a pressure to ensure that the local government are taken away from the governors. As we speak, the governors are sitting on top of local government. We need to have a law where INEC will conduct election for the local government. The local government will be on its own. It won't be under the governor's control. The resources comes to him. When they share this 8 trillion, he gets his own direct. Some local government get 200 million every month. Some get 300 million every month. Some 150 million every month. Every month, that 100, 200, 300 million comes to the local government. And they're not doing anything with it. The governor is keeping that money. So the National Assembly have to move quick. Last time they tried to amend it and tried to do that, but they said that 36 states House of Assembly has to support it. And many of the 36 state assembly refused because governor told them not to support it. Because they don't want accountability. If my local government is getting 200 million every month, in a whole year, what have they done with the 200 million? That's where so we need to have that law that will bring transparency and accountability at the local government level, then state. Then on the part of the citizens about paying tax, we need to also have institutional impediment that will force you to pay your tax, even when you don't pay, you don't pay. For example, you want to put your child in a public school, they'll ask you to bring tax clearance certificate. You want to go for your international passport, they should ask you to bring tax clearance certificate. You want to fix your vehicle, maybe for vehicle license or driving license, the VA or road safety will say, bring your tax clearance certificate. You want to buy a land, bring your tax clearance certificate. You want your child to get admission in a unity school, in federal school, bring your tax clearance certificate. So these institutional mechanisms will definitely force people, because if you don't bring it, you are not going to get what you want. So when you bring this institutional mechanism, definitely you have to jam one of them. And when you jam one of them, you have no option than to do what? To go and pay your tax. And that is how it's done in some climes, because there is institutional mechanism combating tax evasion and other form of tax defaulting incidences.
To the new man at the FIRS, you've talked about technology. Probably we need to improve our tax systems technologically. What else can he do?
Yeah, the man that just left, Nami, he did very well. In my own assessment, he did very well. He was able to implement the Tax Pro Max, which has aided our tax processes. I'll tell you here, if I returns here online, and I'll tell my secretary here, he will generate tax client certificate online for our clients. He will just apply and it comes, except the company has an issue. You now go to FIRS and complain about the issue. We have never seen such for my 18 years of practice as a tax practitioner, tax consultant. So Nami did very well. I'll give it to him. Now, this man came in, he need to review the processes, because that tax program still have some of the challenges. And one of the challenges is that you cannot pay if not Naira. Our tax law says that if you earn in foreign currency, you pay tax in foreign currency. Well, right now, the tax program doesn't recognize foreign currencies. You only pay in Naira. So you need to do an update to make sure that those who earn foreign currencies pays in foreign currencies. There's also challenges in the tax programs I expect him to, improve upon. But more importantly, he should find a way to deploy technology in tax collection. Deploying technology in tax collection will help to close up leakages. Because you can imagine, people are crying of multiple taxation in Nigeria, yet we are having low tax to GDP ratio. Something is wrong. On the other part, we are crying for multiple taxation. And on the other part, our tax to GDP ratio is low. That means there's a leakage. There are leakages. So he can deploy technology to close these leakages, and that will increase the tax revenue.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Joining me live on Zoom is Chief Seliman Kitengi, who is a Communication and Advocacy Officer at the AU Development Agency, NEPAD, and Dr. Uchenna Ekwo, Executive Director of Center for Media and Peace Studies Initiatives in New York. Well, the General Assembly is on, and there's a lot of hope and a lot of excitement and a lot of anxiety in Africa. A number of Africans say that the world has not shown Africa the kind of importance that Africa should be shown. And I read an article by Chief Seleman Kitenge that he entitled "The G20 UN Security Council Africa's Diplomatic Agenda." And I'll start with you, Chief Seleman Kitenge, in Tanzania. What point were you trying to make in this your article?
All right. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to share my insight. Actually, one of the main critical points that I was trying to make in this particular article is the fact that despite Africa being one of the potential partner in the global development issues, but yet its participation and in most of the key decision-making tables is quite minimal. So, for instance, when you look at the G20 summit, you could find that for the past few years, Africa has been part of it, but only as an observer. But yet, when it comes to major global development crises, Africa is mostly impacted by them. So in this particular article, I was trying to indicate how important it is for Africa now to not be at the back, but
Chief Kitenge, we seem to be losing you. While we wait for you to get back, let me go to Dr. Ekwo. Dr. Ekwo, you have a completely different perspective in your writings. And the focus of most of your writing is that Africa should be given more prominence in global affairs. Can you take us through your argument?
Yeah, that's so true. As a matter of fact, part of the argument I've also made in several fora, including when I addressed the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa in 2012, was that the future of the world is in Africa. Let's face it. And that is why, like the last speaker also said something about Africa being a part of being on the table in matters of economic development and stuff. And like he was also trying to talk about the G20. We recognize that G20 actually, of course, we know we started in 1999 during the Asian financial crisis, first of all with finance ministers of major economies of 20 countries. Before a decade later, during the global crisis now, heads of state now joined the 20. But actually, when I got the news that it's now G20 plus one, you know, like referring to Africa as just one country, because like I stay in the United States and I see ignorance all the time about how people view Africa. Even some of my students, some of them don't know that Africa is a country. Some of them think it's a country. And that same scenario plays on a global level. So if, for example, Italy is not even up to a certain states in Nigeria, yet it's a member of G20 as a single entity. Yeah, I recognize AU and all the fault lines about formation of AU will try to copy EU, but somehow they find some differences because for it to get into AU, unlike getting into EU, there is just no steps to take to get into AU. Just because you're an African country now, you become a member of AU, unlike EU. So my goal would be to see a very major power like Nigeria, Africa, and even Egypt and all that being recognized as single countries, not looking every 55 countries, you're calling them one. There's no way 55 is equivalent to one. All right. So there are so many small countries that cannot match the population and all the elements of power that exist in other African countries. And part of it, there are so many explanations for what is happening. We know that, including the way our leaders have really, conducted themselves. We do have that potential to provide leadership, particularly in Nigeria. in being seen as a very major force. I also know that way back, I think in the middle 80s or so, if by way of taking back to history, there was something one administration set up then called Concert of Medium Powers, something equivalent to NATO. Through some kangaroo arrangements, the West, scuttled that. These were some, look at even ECOMOG we set up. That would have been certain steps that will be able to make Africa or other countries recognize our potential, that we can, handle our issues. So just like all these coups happening here and there, and we have some former colonial governments having some influence in the way we operate. So I think that we are ripe enough to be seen as separate different countries. And the challenge also, okay, we say G20 plus one. So who will go there and speak for, can Francophone African country or Anglophone African country speak for the situation happening in the other areas? So we don't have that unity of voice to be able to advance the agenda of Africa in an organization like that. So I would rather prefer a situation where countries are recognized for their might, for their strength, considering all the elements of power, population, economic strength, and all that. Then, honestly, unfortunately, Nigeria is a disappointment. Let's just face that. Because if Nigeria had played a role in Africa, perhaps these things wouldn't be happening. I will yield and hear some other perspectives. But my point also is that people should stop treating Africa as one. We have 55 countries because nobody says G20 plus Asia.
Okay, let's go back to Kitenge in Tanzania. Well, Kitenge, sorry we lost you, but you've heard some of the argument that Dr. Ekwo in New York is putting forward. You are talking about G20, and he thinks that the G20 and the way it's being handled might be an insult to Africa. Is that is that something you want to associate yourself with?
Always, it's good to have to make one step at a time. So for me, I would say that for now, it's a good step towards Africa being included in these key platforms. But yet, I think I would also agree with Doctor that it is not enough. I think we need Africa to be more included in such platform, considering the fact that, as Doctor said, we have different countries, we have many countries, like 55 member states, who have different culture, but also different interests. So I think a consideration of geopolitical mighty, socioeconomic aspect, I think they should consider that so that Africa could have more seats in these global platforms.
Kitenge, will Africa be represented as one Africa, or is it going to be represented by a nation?
All right, and that's a very technical question, but I think, in my opinion, geopolitical representation should be considered. We have 55 member states, and I think, in my opinion, Africa should at least have 2 seats in the UN Security Council. And here we have to consider the criteria of the, social, but also economic, mighty, and all other aspects that are important to ensure that Africa is well represented in the UN Security Council.
Okay, gentlemen, let's look at how ready Africa is, because Dr. Ekwo had said something about Africans not actually providing the kind of leadership that they should provide, not doing the things that they should do to make them a force to be reckoned with in global politics. Let me come back to you, Dr. Ekwo. What should Africa, because we are concluding now, what should Africa be doing so that, if you don't say you are, nobody knows that you are. So what should Africa be doing to make itself more relevant in the scheme of things globally?
In a nutshell, the answer is leadership, economic development, and economic integration. Why I emphasize economic integration? Because I've this argument about join and having a permanent seat at the Security Council, that has been a long argument. But when you also know the history of how the UN was formed, Africa was not even on the seat around. They were not even part of it. But people have been talking about reforming the United Nations to reflect the global nature of that organization. And like you rightly said, for us to do that, for Africans to really be seen as serious, they should be able to create very positive impact in terms of direction, in terms of leadership. The fact that almost every African country still depends on the West to tell them what to do is unsustainable. If we continue to play that role, look at all the Francophone African countries. They are tethered to France. Some of them, if you make a call from here, US to maybe Senegal, sometimes it passes through France and all that. They are not independent, even though they could claim they are independent. Other Francophone countries, Nigeria, etc., yes, they call them, they are independent, but they still play the quote-unquote servant stuff to the West. Now, when you are put in that kind of paternalistic relationship where you can't say, here I am, right? And let me talk about economic integration, because economy is the most important thing. I've often wondered, like some of us will say that Africa, we are too diverse, that we can never come together, different languages, this and that. But what unites people is money. So if we're able to develop strong economic integration in Africa, that will help. In Europe, the entire Europe, after the war, they have different languages. They are scattered as like Africa as well. But the economic community they set up then, that's also part of the EU and all that, helped them to kind of reduce those differences because they are pursuing one economic interest. African states do not have a free trade, Africa free trade agreement and all that. If it works the way it's envisioned, that could also give us some leverage, so that people are able to trade across borders, move from point A to point B, no visa restrictions and all that. That can also help because there are a lot of people in Africa with a lot of ingenuity and creativity that are stifled because they can't move around.
There's no doubt that if Africa does what you are suggesting, Africa becomes a very huge market that cannot be ignored. Yeah. So let's go to Kitenge. You heard what Doctor said, and I want to ask: how can Africa be intentional about creating relevance around Africa so that we can be treated with a lot of respect?
Actually, as Doctor said, if we want to maintain our relevance, the key word here should be unity. And the unity of Africa will only be possible if we are integrated politically, we are integrated economically, and integrated socially. Only when all these three elements are unified, it's that when Africa will have a unity voice and become relevant at the world stage.
Let me come back to you, Dr. Ekwo in New York. Here we are. The hunger is ongoing. What should Africa take away from this session?
Given recent developments in Africa, especially about coups and all that, like I said in another interview that I was granted by a station here, in the 90s, the world celebrated Africa's transformation from military dictatorship to democracy, multipartyism and all that became the norm then, right? But today, there seems to be a recession in democracy. Like I also mentioned, it's not just in Africa, though. Even in the United States, there's a terrible recession of democracy. Everyone is talking about democratic backsliding and all that. So I think that what they should emphasize is how to consolidate democracy in Africa, because that is just the a solution. And consolidating democracy will mean citizens' capacity to jettison dictators. Because when people stay in power too long, there's one popular politician in Nigeria those days, MK Abiola. There's one phrase I remember he said that if you stay in the toilet too long, flies will drive you away. So when most people stay in power for too long, people will just come and drive them away, like what is happening.
And they lose it.
And they lose it.
You're still watching the Signature Show. And before we go, there's a song that's making waves, and this song has attracted attention because of the wonderful things it says about Nigeria. Every day we hear about all the bad things about Nigeria. But here, one Nigerian, a patriotic Nigerian, has come out with a song he called Brand New Niger. His name is Jill Joe. And we are bringing you that song, and with a promise that is going to be our guest on the next edition of the Signature Show. Just sit back, and as I say bye from this side, relax and enjoy this video by Jill Joe.
In our great nation, Nigeria, everything inside it is yearning for a brand new Nigeria. We are so blessed with great potentials, and we must join our hands in unity and to get a brand new Nigeria. Cause even though we built bridges down here very strong, with that unity, though we buy trains and ship that goes very far, without oneness, though there is no mountain that man hasn't climbed. Cause a brand new Nigeria begins with it. So I say, if we need a brand new Nigeria, we've got to get a brand new, got to get a brand new. If we need a brand new people, we've got to get a brand new life. If we need a brand new life, we've got to get a brand new spirit. Got to get a brand new spirit. If we need a brand new spirit, we must submit to our God. If we need a brand new Nigeria, if we need a brand new Nigeria, we've got to get a brand new people. We've got to get a brand new people. If we need a brand new people, we've got to get a brand new life. Free of corruption. If we need a brand new life, we've got to get a brand new spirit. Got to get a brand new spirit. If we need a brand new spirit, we must submit to our God. Let all we Nigerians come together to prove to the world that we are a great nation in the continent of the world. Let's raise our flag flying in victory, standing against every opposition, and establish a brand new Nigeria. Cause a brand new Nigeria cannot be gotten without love and unity. We cannot get it when we fight each other, killing ourselves. Baba God knew it, that is why he gave. Cause a brand new Nigeria begins with it. So I say, if we need a brand new Nigeria, we've got to get a brand new people. If we need a brand new people, we've got to get a brand new nation meant for the job alone. If we need a brand new life, we need to change our mind. Brand new spirit. We need to be brand of mentality. Brand new spirit. We must submit to our God. If we need a brand new You got to be responsible for all you do in life. If we need a brand new life. You got to get a brand new spirit. Got to get a brand new spirit. We need a brand new spirit. We must submit to our God. This one a special dedication to Nigeria, my beloved country. Good people, great nation. The destiny is in our hands. Come on. Our problem is not in accusing each other. It's not in blaming the bicameral legislature. It's not in the presidency, not in the 3 tiers of governments, and it's not also in the problem of the people of the South Side or any of the ethnic groups. Our problem is within us as the entire citizens of this great nation, Nigeria. God says, if my people that are called by my name shall humble themselves and turn away from their wrongs, then I will from heaven hear their cry and heal their land. So let's stop accusing and fighting each other. Let's come together in love and unity as one, as brothers and sisters, praying by one God and prove to the world that our honor abides by supporting this great project of rebranding. Good people, great nation. God bless Nigeria, my country. Amen. If we need a we've got to get a brand new beat. Got to get a brand new beat. If we need a brand new beat, take my hand. We've got to get a brand new beat.
That's how we are ending our show today. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo in Abuja, Nigeria. If you enjoyed this show, let's do it again next Sunday. But don't forget, you can leave us a message on our social media handles. And you can also watch this show again and many other editions of The Signature Show on www.signaturetv.org.